Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kastuba. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Charlotte, North Carolina. This is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kastuba Das. Welcome to the show, everybody, and welcome to North Carolina. Woo! Now, some of you might be asking, Raghunath, what the hell are you doing in North Carolina? And that's a story in itself. That's what happens when you try to smuggle 5 jars of ahimsa ghee through security at the airport. And they frisked me, went through all my things, and they're like, I'm sorry, you can't bring through any liquids. I was like, please. I made up an excuse. I was like, I have a skin condition. I need this for my body. I have a weak condition. Please, I have a weak constitution. And they're like, it's a liquid. I go, in your state, it's a liquid. In my state, it's a solid. Everything's hot down here. Like, I'm sorry. And anyway, it was a whole.
It's a highly flammable liquid, Raghunath.
Yeah, you got a good point. You should be working for JFK security, actually. So they didn't let me in, but I did go out and check my ghee, and I sent it. And yeah, when you get ahimsa ghee, you just got to.
But you missed your flight.
Is that but I missed my flight. Yes, I missed my flight. I'm spending a nice day in Charlotte. Okay. I'm leaving tomorrow, so I can't do any lollygagging after the show. I got to be out of here.
You're leaving tomorrow?
Oh, no, today. Today, right after the show, so no lollygagging.
Yeah, we're all very guilty of that.
Yeah. You'll have to drag me out of here.
Oh, the excitement. I tell you, when you're a devotee, there's no dead time anymore. You're never bored. You just walk around chanting, looking at people. I think I have my Santa Claus bead bag, so I look especially peculiar walking around chanting on a Santa Claus bead bag. Usually when I just have like a brown bead bag, everyone's like, oh, what's up with your hand? Did you hurt your hand? I was like, why? Do you normally wrap your hands in cloths? No, this is my bead bag. But when you have a Santa Claus bead bag, they think you're slightly insane, especially when you're mumbling to yourself. So that was my day. And I'm here with all of you. What do you think about that? You want a nugget? You're looking like you're nugget hungry, Kastuba.
Sure, let's hear it.
Well, we have any announcements first before I nug?
Okay. We're back to recovery group meetings today. The men are at 11 and the women are at 2. All
right. And Rachel wanted me to announce that if you haven't checked out wisdomofthesages.com/sage-academy, that's a tab on our website, Wisdom of the Sages, Sage Academy. Check out Bobby Marchand's. We're doing a retreat at the farm, Bhaktified Yin, Restorative and Yoga Nidra Immersive Study. That's June 25th. And also Kirtan School with me and Madhu. If you want to dive into Kirtan, me and Madhu are leading a nice Kirtan training July 6th. So we have a bunch of offerings going up. Some are up there right now. Jump on board because they actually go quick. Here's the nugget I got for you, my friend.
This one actually borrowed this from Chapuji. Chapu posted this one.
Chapu posted this. It's almost like this is something like we would say. When did this guy live, Kastuba?
He lived in the 1900s. I'm not sure exactly when he passed away, but he was one of these big, scientists that was involved in quantum physics and figuring all of that out. But anyway, let's read it, and I was just as you were greeting everyone, and I was looking him up a little bit. I found some interesting stuff.
Okay. His name is
Who's it from?
Erwin Schrodinger.
Schrodinger, I think.
Schrodinger. We do not belong to this material world. This is something I would say. We do not belong to he was just ahead of his time. We do not belong to this material world.
He finally caught up to you, Raghunath. It's like...
I say this all the time. I never even heard of him. We do not belong to this material world that science constructs for us. We are not in it. We are outside. We are only spectators.
Now, this
The
is
reason,
interesting,
I
actually.
like this, right? The reason why we believe that we are in it, that we belong to this picture, is that our bodies are in the picture. Our bodies
Because
belong
our
to
bodies
it.
are in the picture, right?
Bodies
You
are-
relate that. It's because our bodies are in the picture. That's
Yeah,
why.
our bodies belong to it. Not only my own body, but those of my friends, also of my dog and cat and horse. He had a horse. That's interesting. And all of the other people and animals. And this is my only means of communicating with them.
Right. That's interesting too. That personal connect. In other words, the reason why this world seems real to us is because it is the faculty through which we communicate with other spirits. Right. It's the form that we're operating in. So again, it's very much like I'll read it again. Right. We do not belong to this material world that science constructs for us. We are not in it. We are outside. We are only spectators. The reason why we believe that we are in it, that we belong to the picture, is that our bodies are in the picture. Our bodies belong to it. Right? Our bodies are made of material energy. They actually belong to the material world, right? Just like in a virtual reality, you have a body that's made up of computer coding, right?
Right.
So it's really only your body in the virtual reality, or let's say not virtual reality, well, virtual reality or like a video game or something like that. We have an avatar. It's only your body that actually belongs to that world, right? And you're outside of it, engaging with through it and engaging with other people through it. But you're really just observing it all from the outside.
This observers peeking into this drama. It's really a drama, isn't it? Isn't life just a drama? It's like a Mahabharata. We're all living our own kooky version of the Mahabharata. And hopefully Krishna is entering our version of the Mahabharata too, not just our mundane version.
Now, what do you know about quantum physics, Raghunath?
Oh, what I know. You don't want to know what I know.
It's too much. I won't even get into it.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it, really. It's something we should study a little bit, but I've pulled up an article
I
here.
feel like you study bhakti yoga. That is quantum physics. What do you think about that?
There you go.
There you go. Or what's the definition of quantum physics? You got an article on it?
Well, why doesn't Mara look up the definition of quantum physics? And I'll just read something about it. I have something that refers to quantum physics, and this is an article from Science The Wire. And it's about this Erwin Schrodinger. And it says that quantum physics is one of the most remarkable developments of the 20th century. Until the early 1900s or so, Isaac Newton's laws of motion dominated the study of the physical universe. They were later upgraded, for the most part, by Albert Einstein's theories of relativity, and together they could satisfactorily explain almost all physical phenomenon. Okay? So we're looking at physical phenomenon, and we've got these theories, and these theories explain it. These classical theories form the bedrock on which the entire superstructure of physics rested. But in the early 1900s, physicists found that subatomic particles.
Here we go.
Okay, so now let's get into the atom and see that the laws are different inside the atom, right? Like the laws that the atoms are the atoms are living within a certain set of laws, but when you go within the atom, you find that the particles within the atom, they don't seem to follow the same laws of physics, right? So, but in the early 1900s, physicists found that the subatomic particles like electrons could behave in ways that defied the predictions of classical physics. To explain this behavior, they formulated the theories and principles of quantum mechanics. Together, a set of natural laws that could predict the behavior of electrons and other subatomic particles very well. Okay, interesting. Some of the more well-known among these physicists were Einstein, Niels Bohr, Erwin Schrodinger, and Werner Heisenberg. However, these physicists and others would soon find that the newcomer, while opening new theoretical, and I guess by the newcomer they're talking about quantum physics, that the newcomer, while opening new theoretical and technological vistas, also made some strange predictions. For example, it allowed electrons to tunnel through walls, particles to exist simultaneously in two places at once, black holes to evaporate, and information to be exchanged between observers faster than light.
I knew all this stuff when I was a child.
Well, you always believed it.
I must have been a physicist. And all this. I always think like this. I've always thought like this.
Well, maybe you were a reincarnation of Schrodinger or something.
Maybe.
Now, he goes on. He goes on to say, the article goes on to say, this was a crucial moment in history. I mean, this is crucial, right? Where you have the most learned scientists realizing that things don't follow the laws of physics as we used to conceive of them. This was a crucial moment in history when physics was in a state of major upheaval. The familiar classical picture of reality was being disrupted by one that seemed to be too crazy to be true, even if it explained numerous experimental observations that the former could not. Einstein, Bohr, Schrodinger, and Heisenberg and others were deeply troubled by its implications. Indeed, they were faced with a personal dilemma: to believe a preposterous theory that worked or discard it for an intuitive theory that didn't work. Interesting, isn't it?
Very interesting.
It's challenging their empiric understanding of the world. Now it goes on. At this critical juncture, they discovered that their notion that the world we see is not reality itself, but a projection onto our consciousness, wasn't completely new. In the ancient Indian text known as the Upanishads, they found echoes of their theories.
And they get all the credit. And they get all the credit.
Well, it sounds like they made
For me and my yogi friends have been talking about this for lifetimes.
Okay.
Millennia.
Right.
No, it's true, though. We do have this thing where we just shift all the credit. Just like I was saying the other day about breathing. Oh, breathing. We got the science behind breathing and the breath. And right there's the new science. The yogis knew all this stuff. They just didn't call it the new science. They just did it. They'd have the information. They shared it.
Well, like we were saying in that previous show, that it's an example of science catching up, right, to the past, catching up to the writings of the past, to the Upanishads, right? So it says, in the ancient texts known as the Upanishads, they found echoes of their theories and a philosophical foundation to ensure that they would no longer be cast adrift by the implications of quantum mechanics.
There will be a time. I mean, when I see devotees, I really respect them. Well, there'll be a time in this world that everybody just, when they see Brahmins, when they see sort of like swamis, they'll be like just such great respect in the most highest regard, and not just look at people as these guys are weird, these are culty, and it's coming in our lifetime.
Okay.
Like things are shifting, my friend.
Is it? Are you just fixing everything around here?
not fixing it, but let's just all be part of this.
Okay.
Amara, can you look up Schrodinger's cat, please? What the heck is that about?
Schrodinger's cat is it was like some mental experiment that explains something about quantum physics. How a cat can be that until
dead and alive.
It can be dead and alive at the same time. Yeah, but I think you gotta.
Yeah, it illustrates a paradox of quantum superposition. In the thought experiment, a hypothetical cat may be considered simultaneously both alive and dead, as a result of its fate being linked to a random subatomic event that may or may not occur.
Say what?
Wikipedia says.
Yeah. Now I'm completely.
You haven't been talking about
really
this all along.
That really clarified the point. Thank you for telling that.
Okay.
It was a teaching tool that Schrodinger used to illustrate how some people were misinterpreting quantum theory.
Interesting. But, just again, like kind of going back to what, our previous, I guess it was last Friday's class. But, a theme that we touch on a lot, where we hear about things and they sound entirely mythological to us, right? We were speaking in the context of what we've been reading in Bhagavatam about how these sages somehow, like we would describe it like this, right? Somehow they understood a science of like genetics, where they took
Right.
part of a body of King Vena and quote unquote churned another being out of that, right? So nowadays you could say, oh, it must have something to do with DNA. They took a DNA sample from that body, and through that created a new being that was coming in the same dynasty, right, with the same genetic code. But if before we had the science of genetics, this would have, I mean, I'm sure for most people it still sounds completely mythological enough, but then it would sound entirely mythological, right? You can't create one being from the body of another just by taking a little piece of it, right? But then science catches up and you have a new context to speak about it in. And so here's another example. Here's an example of scientists that, like we're familiar with, like Einstein, right? Heisenberg and these others, that they when they went deeper into the atom, which others weren't previously able to do, they found that this is actually acting more according to the laws that these ancient books were talking about, right? It all sounded totally mythological, but now we're empirically observing it happening within the atom, right? And in order to understand it, in order to feel like we're not crazy, we have to go back to these old books and say, oh, other people were talking about it thousands of years ago. Very interesting.
There's a limit to empiricism.
Yeah.
Right. Also, there's only certain things.
And it's bizarre that we could think that nothing exists beyond that limit, or that we limit ourselves to have our imagination expanding beyond that limit.
And that's what we're observing. Like, okay, we created that subatomic or that electron microscope. We created that, but what can't we observe if we didn't and that's with an eyeball. Like, what senses am I missing? Like, I have an eye.
What dimensions are you not perceiving?
Yeah. I don't have ears that can hear all frequencies, right? So I don't have, even if I have, my vision is limited in the same way a dog can only see in black and white. What can't I see due to some limitation? Why must I think as a human I have complete, these are all the senses that one can have?
And why do I scoff when I hear a description of something that's beyond that, or someone operating, perceiving beyond that, or operating on a dimension beyond that?
Oh, it's a mythological being in outer space.
Because we don't see that.
They say, because we don't see it. Because you don't have the senses, Mara. You have limited eyeballs.
I think it's not only Mara. I think
just
others are limited
just
Mara.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, that was good.
Interesting.
I mean, but truthfully, that was one of my childhood realizations. Like, what am I missing out on?
Oh.
What am I missing out on that I can't perceive because of my limited senses?
And that sent you on your path.
It was part of it.
Okay.
And then time factor, trying to see things and, just like study history and just like, wow, I just am a moment in greater time. I am a moment. Why are there so many worries? Why is this so important? Why must I go to school today? No one will remember in 300 years if I go to school or if I skip school. That was like my first
time for you
spiritual realization.
You zoomed out. You zoomed out.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about this yesterday. Just, people take hallucinogens and they say that, it's granting them some spiritual insights, right?
Yeah.
And I've taken hallucinogens. It was a long, long time ago. Okay. No time recently. But what I found was that, it gets you thinking in ways that you haven't thought of before. And a lot of those have to do with dimension, right? Like, for instance, in terms of time. Like, you might think 1 minute you're on LSD, and 1 minute you're thinking like, my whole life is just like a split second. It just disappears instantly. It's nothing.
That was my realization.
And then the next second you're thinking, every moment is unlimited and like, expands, or it just gets you thinking in terms of dimensions like that. I'm important. Like I'm nothing. I'm just a speck of nothingness in the vastest of universes that is unlimited and goes on forever. I'm meaningless. And then the next second you're thinking, I am everything. Like everything revolves around me. I may be the only conscious being, like the entire universe is designed for my experience. It just gets you going like back and forth.
What else do you have what else do you have in your spiritual toolbox, Kostuba?
Well, my point is this, is that, and then people that do hallucinogens, they think this is important for spiritual realization. And so, but my point would be, well, you come off, it does play with your mind and it may help you kind of stretch things and so on. But in the long run, it really doesn't help you that much. And it's likely it'll kind of confuse you more. But you can get that same experience by reading these books. In other words, if you're trained to read these books and hear about them, it's the books themselves are expanding your imagination, your thought, and your ability to play with these different perspectives.
And let's face it, we're not going to walk around tripping all day long, 24/7. So I don't think anyone's going to have.
Well, I think their point was on the trip, I expand my mind. Then when I come back, I have a mind that's been expanded.
I get that, but we need to keep that 24/7. We need to keep referring to that. We need to hold on to the rope, so to speak. And that doesn't mean we should just go trip again. So I think it's important to have that realization, but we don't want to come down from it. We want to keep that in perspective. We want to, even when we come down and we play our roles in this world as the parent, as the friend, as the spouse, we still have to keep that very zoomed out reality. We're going to call that the reality and not the temporary world. We do what we do in this world, but we see it as sort of like we're just doing our time, learning our lessons, playing these roles.
We should look into this more, though. I do find it very interesting that these scientists, when they got within the atom, and then they saw, there's a whole different set of laws here that seem mythological, right? Seem impossible, seem like it's something that is fiction. But that actually, if we go back, it gives us a whole new perspective of viewing these writings of the past.
It's like if once they start quoting the Upanishads, why don't they go to India and get initiation? Like find some gurus and get it. You think like, come on, get serious, guys.
I mean, maybe they got more into it than you know. Travel wasn't so easy then, Raghunath.
Yeah, that's true. Earlier, that's true.
I mean, I guess it wasn't all that long ago, but still. Anyway, very interesting stuff. It's another case of science catching up to the past.
It's another case of Mara. What would you call that? I already said that.
Science catching up to the past.
Do we have to do everything?
But how much more in the future, how much more will science catch up to the past? How much more of what we're reading from these books, which sounds ridiculous now, how much more of it will sound reasonable? How much more will science catch up?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a mystery. Only
just like when
time will tell.
Yeah. God is a blue cowherd boy.
Sounds
maybe.
Crazy.
Sounds crazy, right? Maybe. Why not? It's a real, that's what I wanted to say. Why not? Why not? Or the other quote I say a lot is, it's all real. It's all real just when you think. Why not? I like to say that on a regular basis. What do I know?
Okay, brother.
All right.
Shall we move on?
Where are we? Mara?
Canto 4, Chapter 16, Text 1.
Okay. Narayanam namaskritya naram chayeva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tatojayam mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord, Narayan, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshu vadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Gyana Tamrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksur Unmidatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. All right. Did that backwards. Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 16, Text 1, Praise of King Prithu by the professional reciters.
Now, do you remember where we left off, Raghunath?
Prithu got coronated.
That's right. And then
reciters came.
Yes.
They were
and what did he tell them?
Him. He told them, "Why are you praising me? I didn't do anything yet. Right? Wait till I do something, or praise someone who's worthy of it. Praise God. It's all coming from God."
Well, it sounds like they're not going to listen to him.
Yep. We're going to appreciate you anyway, Mr. Prithu Maharaj. Text 1. The great sage Maitreya continued. So he's our narrator. While King Prithu thus spoke, the humility of the nectarian speeches pleased the reciters very much.
He spoke with such humility, right?
Yes,
what a breath of fresh air, because they had King Vena before.
He was arrogant, full of himself, narcissistic.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Then again, they continued to praise the king highly with exalted prayers, as they had been instructed by the great sages.
Okay.
The reciters continued, "Dear king, you are a direct incarnation of the personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, and by his causeless mercy you have descended to this earth. Therefore, it is not possible for us to actually glorify your exalted activities. Although you have appeared through the body of King Vena, even great orators and speakers like Lord Brahma and other demigods cannot exactly describe the glorious activities of your lordship."
Okay, so he's been called here a Shaktavesha avatar, right? So there's different categories of manifestation, like God manifesting in different categories, in different ways. So Shaktavesha avatar means?
When God enters into the body of a jiva.
Like personally?
Yeah. He enters in the body.
His energy, right?
Like his energy, his shakti. His shakti. And it empowers that person to do the work of God.
There you go.
Very interesting. Mm-hmm. Although we are unable to glorify you adequately, we nonetheless.
Are you Shaktavesha avatar, Raghunath?
You tell me. I will never
your
tell.
palms.
I will never say. I will never say. It's not my place to say. You say.
You are.
I did not say.
Okay.
Although we are unable to glorify you adequately, we nonetheless have a transcendental taste for glorifying your activities. We shall try to glorify you according to the instructions received from authoritative sages and scholars. Whatever we speak, however, is always inadequate and very insignificant. Dear King, because you are a direct incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all of your activities are liberal and ever laudable.
This is some interesting things are mentioned here, Raghunath. I felt, right? It begins with the sentence, "Although we are unable to glorify you adequately, we nonetheless have a transcendental taste for glorifying your activities." Mm-hmm. Now, generally, we were walking through this world just waiting for the moment when someone's going to begin to glorify our activities, right? It's like, why aren't people recognizing and glorifying my activities? What's going on here, right? Like we hanker for it. And when we see someone else being glorified in that way, we may feel a sense of envy, or when is my day going to come, or like that, right?
Right. And when we don't get it, we feel like we feel that FOMO. I'm not like the question the other day on questions and answers day, like, why aren't people appreciating me? Why can't I get more validation? Yeah. And we think that validation will make us whole, complete, centered, and it doesn't anyway. Even if you get that validation, we often find people who get the most validation and they're so off kilter. Sometimes they're suicidal because they know deep down that I'm small. Deep down, we all know we're tiny specks from this universe.
Yeah,
and then when we get a lot of validation
at any moment.
and people just clap for us and laugh at our jokes and sit on the edge of their seats. So they surround us and give us lots of gifts. We start to think, yeah, well, it's about time they start to appreciate. Our ego makes us think, yeah, we are that. And so when we're getting that validation, it can put us deeper and deeper and deeper in that illusion and disconnect us from what we actually are, which is a tiny part of something much, much greater. And it's only the ego that makes me think, no, I am the center. And if you have that good karma that feeds into that, watch out.
Now, this is interesting. Okay, so that's a formula, right? Like, I am the center. My happiness will be derived when people are glorifying me. But the problem with that formula is that we have no control of other people. I mean, one problem with that formula, right? One problem with that formula is that we have no control over other people glorifying us. So if that's what you're dependent on to feel happy or to feel excited, that's where you get your taste. Well, you may be going hungry a lot, you know. Now, on the other end of that, imagine if you cultivated a different taste, that you cultivated a transcendental taste for glorifying others. Well, there's nothing to stop you from doing that. Now you actually have control over it, right?
Sure.
And so that's a whole different idea.
And with getting that personal glorification, you get envious often when other people get glorified because now they're taking you off the king of the mountain.
Away the source of happiness, the source of tastes.
Knocking off your crown. So you develop this envy, this competition of wanting, oh no, I got to keep my place. I got to keep my position here. It's actually riddled with anxiety. That public validation that the ego hankers for so much. We set ourselves up for more anxiety.
Now, the next sentence also mentions something important. We shall glorify you according to the instructions received from authoritative sages and scholars. Right? In other words, also, like, our praise won't be kind of empty. Like, there's empty praise out there, you know?
Right.
Sometimes people use praise, they engage it as a way to, I don't know, as a way to work their way into something or to be recognized themselves or whatever. Or there's praise for things that really aren't praiseworthy. But what they're saying is that our praise, we're not just coming up with this, or it's not superficial, but we're going to, what we say is according to the instructions received from authoritative sages and scholars. This is coming from a place of truth. And Prabhupada goes into this a little bit in the commentary. He says, one should speak to the general populace in accordance with one's predecessors. And then he lists these three. And this is an important phrase. People, this may be a little nugget takeaway for today, right?
Right.
According to sadhu, guru, and?
Mara.
Shastra.
She's well educated. That's what happens when you read the Bhagavatam every day. I can't even stump her anymore. Yeah, I have to get real esoteric if I want to stump Mara.
She's good. She's good. Right. So Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, these three. Why don't you explain these three a bit to us, Raghunath?
It's a check and balance system we have in Vedic culture. You can't just go around and create your own philosophy. We're part of a tradition. I can't, if I was to say, okay, I know the tradition's been doing this for thousands of years, but it's okay to eat chicken. That's okay. Because to be like, well, what does your guru say? That's the first one. Yes. What would your guru say? Well, my guru didn't eat chicken. All right, gong. We know that's not correct then. Or what have previous masters, previous sadhus said about eating chicken? Bong. No, there's again, you're off track. And the third one, of course, is shastra. What does the sacred literature say? So whenever we hear somebody say something, this is why Kaustubha, whenever I make fantastic statement, Kaustubha always be like, where did you hear that from?
That story you just told, was that a bit
that beautiful story about Krishna and the mangoes and where did you hear that from? And so we want to find out where we getting this stuff from, because what you're speaking, if it's not part of the tradition, it's just new stuff that could take you right off your trail and bring you somewhere else. We are on a trail like Lewis and Clark have walked a trail, so to speak, and they know how to get us from New York to the West Coast. There's an appropriate way to go. And if you veer too much, That doesn't mean you have to give up your creativity and all that's you. It just means there's parameters. And when we speak, we're supposed to speak representing Vyas, the author, the compiler of the Vedas. We just can't just talk about Raghunath's cool take on life. That's not what we're here for. And as yoga teachers, that's not what we're supposed to be presenting. So sometimes I will tell a story and I'll say, well, this is my opinion. And then I'll say, but actually, for the most part, I'll speak Vedic truths. And the great part of that is, if you don't like what I say, I'm okay with that. I'm not here to entertain you and make you like what I say. I'm not here to win you over. That's just a Vedic truth. And if you do love what I say, I'm taking no credit for it. It's not mine. I'm indemnified whether you like it or not. I'm just here as a yoga teacher to repeat what has been taught in the tradition.
Imagine this. Here's a little mind game, Raghunath, right?
Mind games. Me like it.
Mind game. Imagine you could take a 24-hour period of your own life, right? I'm not saying this just about you. I'm saying any of us.
Okay.
Imagine we could take a 24-hour period and we could gather all our speech from that one day, right? And then put it through a sieve, okay?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And then what that sieve is filtering out is everything that has no substance or value, right? Like all of your words for that day, we're going to filter out everything that had no substance. And by substance, I mean something like this, right? So that has some kind of solid foundation or value. And then we saw like how much was filtered out and how much came through that sieve, how much did have value or merit or substance. That would be I wonder what the percentage would be. I wonder what the percentage would be. Yeah, and
how much in my life would you think? Guess that percentage.
I don't know. I'm not here to judge, Raghunath. I'm not here to judge.
Imagine if there was just a hovering over your head, a percentage of truth that comes out of your mouth, and a percentage, just like a percentage sign, is over your head during the course of the day.
Right. Or imagine if the percentage, if there was a sign there like that as you began to speak, it said, "This is not according to Guru Sadhu Shastra," this is his own stuff, right?
Your Apple iWatch shocks you every time you speak out of tradition. Where did you hear that from?
But it's just interesting to think that way. Like, okay, we move through this world. Maybe most of us move through this world without a lot of concern for the quality of our speech. We just
gossip app.
It could be gossip
on your iPhone or your iWatch that shocks you every time you gossip.
And but the yogi
you're not going to
is
go with me, are you?
Well, no, that was great. I mean, but I'm still going with that. In relation to that, the yogi is very concerned with their speech, right? Yoga means control of. Ultimately means control of the mind, but it's control of the mind through body, words, and mind, right? Like the yogi's controlling all three. When the body is, in one sense, the easiest to control, and the words are maybe the second, a little bit more difficult. And then the mind is the most difficult to control. But the yogi's actually quite concerned about the control of the body, words, and mind, and that my words have substance, that my words be truthful, that my words be beneficial, right? That we pass through these gates, that whatever we speak passes through that filter, right? That filter. And sometimes we see that yogis, they're quiet, they're mostly quiet, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody's like, what's wrong with that guy? Why isn't he talking more? What's his problem? But it may just be that they've lost a taste for just blah, 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 blah,
blabbing.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, right. Yeah. They've lost a taste for that. And they've learned to be kind of more, to value their own speech more. And they don't want to operate as a vehicle of what we call prajalpa, right? Just talk that has no value.
For people who are blessed with my constitution, where being quiet is very, very difficult, I think the best thing I can do, because I've tried being quiet, it doesn't work. I'm walking through that Charlotte airport, just talking to random people. Where are you going? I just like to
It
talk.
was like that day we were on the rickshaw, right? Remember that? In Vrindavan?
I can't even repeat that. It won't even make any sense.
No, we were riding on a rickshaw going towards like Loy Bazaar, which is, you know, kind of like the shopping district.
The stupid gets in the car. He's like sits himself like down, just starts to take it all in. What do I say?
You were saying like you were just like commenting on it, like every single thing that there was to see. You're like, oh, look at that, it's a shop over there. Oh, when did that come around? Did this, that? I'm like, I said something like, are you gonna comment on every single thing?
I'm a commentator. So my point is this: we can't all just change what we are. We can't. You can't make the spot stripes. But if you fill enough Harikatha and put enough Krishna in your consciousness, oh, you can learn shlokas, you can learn stories. Therefore, when your mouth does open,
it may be open all the time. That's not a problem, right?
Yeah.
You could be speaking 24 hours.
Transcendental things will bleed out of that mouth. You know, so it's all about, for me, what I'm putting in my ears on the regular.
Mm-hmm. So, feed it how you feed it. Now we got Chapu's really with us today. She took us to Bhagavad-gita 7:15.
She's good. She's going for Mara's job. She's on this. Mara, you should be doing this. She should be going like, yeah.
I would defer to Chapu.
Okay.
I think she's better than I am.
So you want to read that, Raghu?
Bhagavad-gita
17:15.
Austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others, and also in regularly reciting Vedic literature.
There you go.
Boom. Just said that.
Boom. just said that. And so what you said was according to Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, and had substance.
Yeah.
But think about that. Maybe we should come up with like a little more little experiments. Not necessarily app, but like experiment. Like the other day we talked about, like we were talking about criticizing others, and we talked about like you put a
rubber band,
like a rubber band around one wrist, and then when you find yourself unnecessarily criticizing someone, then you take it off and switch it to the other wrist.
And you start.
And then you see if you can pass
start to
one
notice
day.
how much you're going back and forth.
Yeah, and then you see, can I go one day without switching it from one wrist to the other, right? What if we try to go an entire day with? I'm not saying that there are no just like practical things that we need to open our mouth and say something about, right? But if we spend an entire day without entering the realm of prajalpa, without entering into the realm of valueless talk.
Valueless talk. I like that.
Yeah, right. If can I go a full day without that? How difficult is that discipline, you know? Or am I just completely controlled by this world, right? Like, am I just a helpless victim, you know? Can I go an hour? You know, can I go an hour? Let's start with that, or a half an hour, you know, like just start to experiment with our speech. We got to come up with a little something for that, right? I mean, I guess it could be
today will be criticism. Tomorrow will be blaming. If I can live a day without blaming anything or anyone or criticism, any situation, that's powerful too. You give up blaming and criticism, you got yourself a new life. Write that down, Mary. Write that down,
Mary. And then oh, Chapu already got it up.
And she's quoting the Bhagavad-gita.
She's got a verse to back it up. But yeah, you know, things like that, criticism, blame, but even like the more insidious, right? Just even the more insidious kind of just talk that just has no value. You know, talking about this television show for no reason, or talking about, you know,
the Kostuba.
No, you're recognizing. I don't think I want to go there.
No, only because, you know, I think there's something about just sort of like uplifting conversation as well. Like, like I am in an airport and I will talk to people because that's what I do. If you're sitting next to me, you're getting a mouthful of Raghunath. That's just what happens. You sit next to me, I start talking to you.
So you surrendered.
I ask you, what are you doing? Where are you going? How are you?
When I hold it, that talk is not necessarily of no value, right? Like, for instance, when we hear about the Goswamis, right? The 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, in our bhakti lineage, are most revered, right?
Right.
There were these they lived about 500 years ago. These incredible saints that wrote incredible texts that our Bhakti
songs,
tradition, is following to this day.
poems. Yeah.
And so not only their teachings but their character are very important to us. And so when we hear about, like, for instance, Sanatan Goswami, right, who was the kind of the elder and leader of the Goswamis, he was a brilliant scholar. He was, you could say he was, in a sense, like a mystic yogi, in the sense that, he could go into deep states of trance and have spiritual visions and all of that kind of thing too. He was a very pure Vaishnava and yogi.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also mentioned that he would walk around the village and talk to the villagers and inquire from them, how are your children?
How you doing?
How's your daughter doing?
Where are you flying to today?
Are your parents? How's their health? Things like that. So why? Why would a person whose consciousness is fully absorbed in spirit, in transcendence, bring their conversation down to this apparently mundane level? My thoughts would be, is that actually they're reaching out to touch to the soul of that person, right? And in doing so,
talking to a person where they can relate.
Yeah, you're opening up the relationship this way. That I care about you. I care about your experience in life. So I don't think that has to be negated.
Okay.
But within that realm, it does open it up to a whole realm of just stuff that really that has no value, right?
Okay, so they can talk. I can talk today on the plane, and I don't have to switch my rubber band to the other wrist. Okay.
But even for experimental purposes, like those what do they call those retreats again? Those vipassana
retreats.
I mean, even that is like, it's interesting to just even shut everything down for a while.
Hey, you want to hear something crazy?
No. I don't know. Hold it. Does it have value?
Yes,
does
it does. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure if I want to hear something crazy.
Kylie, one of our Zoomers, they met on a vipassana, a silent meditation retreat.
Who? I'm sorry. Who did that? Who?
Kylie and Brian. Kylie.
They met on a vipassana retreat. They just looked at each other.
They just
looked
sort of
into
like
each other's eyes
in meditation, going, "Oh no, what a hunk." That's where it all started. I caught him here. Brian just got back on the.
Were they trying to, like, they're looking into each other's eyes and like trying to like give each other phone numbers or something like that, like blinking, like mine.
Love is subtle.
It's very.
You know that, Mara? That's how they met.
I didn't
Silent
know
retreat. After the retreat was over, like, let's start talking to each other. What
Love you.
What's your experience like? What did you see colors? Did you?
I'm in love with you.
Your whole retreat is meant to be peace, and all you're thinking of that. It's pretty good. I'm pretty hot. I actually go to silent retreats to meet people, to meet make friends.
That sounds like at the beginning of a good stand-up routine.
Yeah,
because I always say the wrong thing, right? So
I guess that's a good way to meet a partner. You know what I mean? It's better than like Tinder, probably.
Okay. Definitely a different quality person.
I've never done that. Tinder.
Or a silent retreat.
Or a silent.
Never done a silent retreat. Never done either of them. Okay, text number 4.
It's getting late, man. Remember, I got to get out early.
You have to go at a certain time, but right now you can focus on what we're doing.
The king, Maharaj Prithu, is the best amongst those who are following Dharma. As such, he will engage everyone in the pursuit of dharmic principles and give those principles all protection. Got to protect Dharma. He will also be a great chastiser of adharma and atheistic. Can't you be a good person to be atheistic? That's the question that will arise here. Can't I just be a good person and atheistic? Once you throw the atheism,
is that what you want to do?
Well, no, I'm just saying this. Someone can argue he'll be a great chastiser of the atheist. Why? What's wrong with a good atheist?
Oh, I see. I think it's not just like
point here?
it's not exactly the belief, but how that belief might manifest in ways that are adharmic. That would be my.
Yeah.
I mean, when it says chastiser to the irreligious end atheistic. It may mean like when a person is both, right? The adharmic and atheistic. It could be seen as like
Okay.
that a person possesses both of those. But just when I'm thinking, I'm trying to picture this all in my mind, right? And I think just because of our own, watching growing up watching cartoons or whatever, it's like we're picturing this king. He's up on the throne, got the crown, and then you got these kind of like people groveling at him, like praising him and so on. But, another way to look at that, these bards, they're sages and brahmanas themselves. In one sense, they're revered on a higher level than the king, and they're not just saying this to appease or flatter.
Right.
Right. Like a lot of flattery is motivated, but, I think this is also educational. Like, in other words, the kingdom is watching, right? And by speaking in this way, they're saying this is what we look for in a leader, right? And this person, these are the qualities that you look for in a leader. And we're praising this person because he's possessing those qualities. This will help you understand not only who we look for in a leader, but even in our own leadership roles, what we should try to embody. So it's kind of like it's an educational kind of exercise as well, I think.
Alrighty. Text 5. The king alone in his own body will be able in due course of time to maintain all the living entities and keep them in a pleasant condition by manifesting himself as different demigods to perform various departmental activities. Thus, he will maintain the upper planetary system by inducing the populace to perform Vedic sacrifices. In due course of time, he will also maintain this earthly planet by discharging proper rainfall.
He's going to take care of the water department.
Yeah, he's in charge of the water department.
It's saying that behind everything, there's always a person. So whether it's the devas or whether it's this king or, this king's relationship with the devas and so on, through this, all our needs will be met. All our material needs will be met.
By the way, the ghee incident that I was speaking of earlier,
yes, the ghee
smuggling of the medicinal ghee, that was a classic. This would never happen in Kastuba. This would never happen. Somehow it wouldn't happen. And so I have to make sure I don't miss my plane. If I miss my plane 2 days in a row, that would definitely not happen at Kastuba. So I say we have our takeaways right now.
No. There's still more to discuss here. We got to.
Don't please. No, I have to go. Mara, give me a takeaway.
You don't like it when people just keep you here after the show when you have things to do?
No.
Oh.
Maybe you should just start muting us.
Interesting.
For people that don't know, if you listen to the recording of the show, Mara just kind of cuts it off at a certain point, but it can go on for like a long time. Just our
sometimes 20 minutes afterwards. And lately, I've been a little lonely, and these guys are like teasing me. Lonely. Okay. And I want their association. There's like 53 people still on Zoom, and they want to just sort of like be part of it. And those guys try to mute me and stop me. And
we've also been muting Raghunath. He keeps like, it's like he's hitting the button. I'm hitting mute and he's hitting unmute, and we just go like back and forth on that.
That's how we've been winding up the show for the last few weeks. Okay.
Takeaways.
Takeaways.
We are just spectators of the world. What am I not perceiving? How much more will science catch up to the past? Deep down, we know we are all tiny specks.
Yeah.
Tiny little specks.
Tiny little specks.
No amount of validation will fulfill us.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Cultivate a taste for glorifying others.
And you can be happy all the time that way.
Tasty.
Our trail markers are sadhu, guru, and shastra.
Trail markers.
Trail markers.
Control body, words, and mind. Be truthful and beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Be beneficial.
Fill your ears with Krishna and it will flow out of your mouth.
I think he said bleed out.
I said bleed out.
Yeah, you did. I changed it.
Was a better
that was
one.
graphically that just didn't work.
Thought flow might be more appropriate.
He's bleeding Krishna again.
Help him.
Let's do something.
What's coming out of him? Don't worry, it's Krishna.
Don't engage in valueless talk, blame, or criticism.
That's right.
And vipassana. This would never happen to Raghu.
Ooh,
Oh,
thank you
interesting.
very much. Thank you very much.
You know, I did lose a carrot juice recently at an airport security check. So
You lost the carrot juice. There you go.
He
I've
didn't
lost
miss
a
his
lot
plane
of good
because of
stuff.
it.
I didn't miss my plane, and they're like, you can. They're like, I was like, I can't. They're like, you can take this and go out again and drink it. You know, or
In that
something.
line that just
I was like,
took an
yeah,
hour. You can
I've
go
been
back
standing
out
in
there
line
and
for an hour. Yeah, I'm gonna go outside. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I
Who
lost
got
a
that
big
carrot
thing
juice,
of,
Raghunath? Who got that carrot juice? That's my question.
one of them. Yeah, I lost a big thing of really nice coconut oil, like coconut meat cream, whatever they call that, the coconut
Coconut
mana.
butter. Yeah.
And that thing was solid like a rock. They're like, sorry, can't do it. I
If it's
pleaded-
solid, you should be able to take it.
I know they wouldn't. They were like, sorry,
That's
man.
bogus. They're just confiscating that maybe for their
Taking
own
stuff.
consumption.
their own little egos. Oh, we have,
Oh, their
we have so
egos.
much control of you. We'll take whatever we want.
We'll take your coconut.
We're gonna take your socks. They're not liquid. They could be. Put them in a Vitamix. They'll become liquid. Just take whatever they want.
I also got busted trying to smuggle some fruit in from Colombia one time too.
You got
Busted, like not like I got on the plane, but when I landed in the States, they
Ooh, the dog got you.
it wasn't a dog. They just profiled me and they said, "You, let's look in your bag."
Yeah,
And in there they found the fruit,
yeah.
mangostina.
I've always got it through there. It's always like walk smooth. Don't make any weird facial gestures. I feel like I'm like smuggling.
They're probably
cocaine.
reading that like they're reading you like a book. That guy's got ghee.